This is the story of Lady Anne Tottenham, a member of the Anglo-Irish gentry who took a demon lover and whose ghost today walks throughout Loftus Hall, one of the most haunted mansions in Ireland. A young woman is locked away in a room in a mansion in Ireland in the 1700s. There she broods and stares out the window, hoping desperately for the return of her lover, her supernatural demon lover who has abandoned her, refusing food and water. Eventually she dies, with her body permanently twisted so that she has to be buried in a specially shaped coffin. Hi, I'm Tamworth Grice. Welcome to my channel, the Tamworth Grice Files. Cases that are spooky, macabre, mysterious, supernatural, and just plain weird. And in each instance, I have a personal connection to the story. So be sure to stick around to hear about that. Today's story is about Lady Anne who haunts the halls of a mansion in Ireland. And there are three versions to this story. Version 1, the Devil's Visit. The date is in question. It may have been 1770, it may have been 1775, but what is said is that on one dark, tempestuous night, a ship was blown ashore and wrecked on the Hook Peninsula in County Wexford on the south coast of Ireland. Overlooking the peninsula is Loftus Hall, a grand 22-room mansion first built in 1350. A man who had survived the shipwreck, supposedly the captain, somehow managed to procure a horse, and as thunder crashed and lightning flashed, he galloped through the storm toward the lights of the mansion not far from the sea. Rather than looking tattered and bedraggled from the wreck, the storm, and the frantic horse ride, he appeared at the door of the mansion as a tall, dark, handsome, and well-dressed stranger with the manners and attire of a gentleman. So naturally he was welcomed into the house by Sir Tottenham, the lord of the manor, and his wife, and their lovely daughter, the Lady Anne. He said he was a sea captain and his ship was wrecked and lost. Invited to stay as long as he liked, the stranger did so, soon winning the heart of the beautiful Lady Anne, who was still single and longed to marry. Anne was mesmerized and enchanted by this mysterious and handsome man. Something about him was different than all the other men she'd met. She was in love. Lady Anne passed many evenings in the company of the handsome stranger, often playing cards with her parents as chaperones. The card table was near the card room's oversized fireplace, and one night, warm from the roaring fire, the stranger, unbeknownst to the others, underneath the table, had kicked off his shoes. In the game, each player was to receive 3 cards, but Lady Anne, having only 2 cards, thought perhaps she had dropped one. When Anne bent down to pick up the card, she saw beneath the table the man's feet. They were not normal. They were cloven hooves like those of a goat or the devil. So shocked that she was unable to hold her tongue, she blurted out, "He has cloven feet." And again, to the man himself, "You have cloven feet." At this, the man transformed into a ball of fire and shot up into the air, tearing a huge hole in the roof. From that night, Lady Anne was never the same. She slipped into a state of despair, refusing food and drink. In spite of what she had seen, she longed inconsolably for the return of her demon lover. Her family, thinking her to be mad, locked her in the mansion's tapestry room, Lady Anne's favorite chamber in the house. There she passed her days and nights, sitting forlornly by the window, gazing out and hoping for the return of the stranger. But he never did return. She'd been permanently abandoned, and she died in 1775. She had remained so long in her sitting position that the family could not straighten her body because her muscles had seized. And so a coffin, a bent coffin, was built around her contorted form, and she was buried in the same sitting position in which she had died. Indeed, in the 1940s, when vandals broke into her tomb, they confirmed the legend when they found a twisted or bent coffin containing Lady Anne's remains. But that's only one version of the story. Here's version 2, The Unwed Mother. In the late 1880s, a daughter of the Tottenham family, Lady Jane Loftus, was lady-in-waiting to Her Majesty Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria was scheduled to visit Ireland, and the family formally invited her to come and stay at Loftus Hall. The Queen accepted, and the Lord of the Manor immediately began a thorough and expensive renovation, rebuilding the entire mansion, adding a grand staircase, laying a mosaic tiled floor in the entry, an elaborate wooden parquet flooring imported from Italy in the other rooms. Plus, there were technological innovations such as flush toilets, very rare at the time, and forced air heating. However, the Queen, perhaps having heard the story of the satanic visitor, decided not to come to Loftus Hall. Unfortunately, the renovations had bankrupted the Lord, who was forced to put the hall up for sale. But during the rebuilding, behind one wall in the tapestry room, the room where Anne had been imprisoned, workmen made a ghastly discovery: the bones of a newborn infant. Based on this discovery, many have speculated that the stranger was not satanic at all, that he was a man who had impregnated Lady Anne, and that the family invented the tale of the demon as an excuse to keep her confined and avoid a scandal. Abandoned and alone, she may well have gone mad when she was locked away. Perhaps she died in childbirth, perhaps the infant was stillborn, or maybe it was murdered by the heartbroken Anne or by her humiliated family. It is unknown whether the child died of natural causes or was killed by Anne and or her parents, who believed it was the demon child. Version 3, No Beggars Allowed. Now for the third version of this intriguing story. Version 3 holds that there was no visitor, no baby, no demon, no strange occurrences whatsoever. In this version, the story was invented by the family to keep beggars away. The beggars plagued the household as they were the wealthiest family on the peninsula. However, this version doesn't explain the twisted coffin found by vandals in the 1940s. Whether this version is true, or whichever version is true, it does seem that the house is cursed. After the story of the demonic visitor got around the neighborhood, the family could get no servants to come to work for them. This was exacerbated by tales of the ghost of Lady Anne wandering about the house at night. So the family called in a priest to do an exorcism. He performed the prescribed rituals throughout the house, but he said the only room for which he could not be sure he'd succeeded was the tapestry room, the one where Lady Anne had mourned her abandonment until she died. That room, the priest said, might still have a demonic influence. Nevertheless, in all parts of the house, not just the tapestry room, for hundreds of years, visitors have reported feeling a strange presence and have claimed to have seen unexplainable things, such as a ghostly and forlorn lady presumed to be Anne. And speaking of curses, many say a curse lingers over Loftus Hall to this day. Perhaps the curse is the reason the Lord who did the restoration went bankrupt. In addition, he died young and childless at 39. The estate was later taken over by two different orders of nuns. The Benedictines purchased it in 1917. They named it the Convent of St. Mary's and used it as a school for girls and a place to educate novice nuns. Less than 20 years later, perhaps feeling the effects of the curse, the Benedictines left and Loftus Hall was taken over by the Sisters of Providence. They initially used it as a home and school for those beginning the journey to become a nun, but they too abandoned the property and the school was closed in 1969. The property found a buyer in the early 1800s, Michael Devereux and his wife, who opened it as Loftus Hall. But that closed in the late 1990s. The husband died of a heart attack and the wife struggled on her own for years, then suddenly abandoned the property and put it up for sale. So they had it from the early 1880s to the late 1990s. In 2011, the entire estate was purchased by Shane and Adam Quigley, who made much-needed structural improvements and opened it to the public in 2012 with guided tours of the house. But as if still cursed, that venture closed down in 2020. Loftus Hall was sold the following year and was undergoing much-needed renovation, but the new owner apparently gave up, and now it's for sale again for €3 million or about $3.5 million. Now for my part in the story. During a trip to Ireland, I visited Loftus Hall when the Quigley brothers owned it and were given tours. I'm not a big believer in ghosts, and I'm skeptical about the cold spots people claim to feel when a ghostly presence is near. But during the tour, I noticed not one but two cold areas. One in the card room where Lady Anne had spent many an evening with the charming and diabolical stranger, and one in the tapestry room where she'd been locked away until she died. In the card room, I asked a Canadian couple who were also on the tour if they felt cold or felt a draft. They just shook their heads and rolled their eyes at me. In the tapestry room, I asked another tourist, a British woman, if she felt cold, and she answered rather snarkily, "Perhaps you should have brought what you Americans call a sweater." In addition, in the tapestry room, twice I had the sensation of seeing something or someone from the corner of my eye, sometimes seated and sometimes standing, but both times when I jerked my head around, nothing was there. I also thought I heard the faint mewing of a cat. I looked around because I love cats, but there was no cat. Had I heard the keening cry of the ghost of Anne's newborn baby? I'll never know. So, what do you think? Did a demon or even Satan himself visit Loftus Hall on that stormy night in the 1700s? Did Lady Anne become pregnant by him? Was her baby a demon's child, killed by herself or her family? Is the house cursed? And finally, with it now being up for sale again, would you buy it and live there if you had the money? Please leave your comments below. I want to thank you very much for watching my video. If you found this story compelling, please like, subscribe, sign up for notifications, and spread the word about the channel. Also, let me know in the comments if there are other cases you want me to explore. I love and appreciate you all for watching, and I hope you'll return to view the next video in the Tamworth Christ Files. Bye!